Alright everyone, once again it is time for Mondays with Monte. I am Montgomery and today I'm going to talk about initiation. We've had some silliness the past few weeks and we're stepping away from that. We're getting back to at least semi-serious topics. So, as I said, today I'm going to talk about initiation. It should be very interesting. It's a difficult subject for people, generally, because unless you have a character like Amumu or Galio, or somebody for whom it's really, really obvious how this works, initiation can be very hard. When you've got a giant circle of death that tells all of your teammates, hey guys, come in, let's do this, it's pretty easy. Or if you're the teammate and you're Amumu or Galio, whoever puts out that circle of death, it's pretty easy to know to go in. But when you're somebody else, like Maokai, or Zed, or Kha'Zix, or Sinjao, or whoever else, it's not so obvious. You don't have that, they're all clumped together, time to get them moment. Instead, you just have this lingering suspicion that maybe you're about to make a really bad mistake. And what I'm going to try to tell you today is that it's a good idea to make mistakes. And this is one of the most important things that I like to harp on, is that it's better to make a humongous mistake with conviction than it is to just waffle and kind of look at the mistake sideways and I'm not sure if I want to do this, because that is in and of itself a big mistake. If you never commit to a decision, you never have something to look at and say, well, that was a mistake. All you have is, well, I never really committed to that idea. It could have been the right thing to do right at that moment, but I hesitated, and then I hesitated some more, and then I hesitated some more again, and by the time I stopped hesitating, the moment was gone, and I didn't have anything to do, and well, maybe we all died, or just nothing happened, that kind of thing. And so we're going to look at a few replays that have a lot to do with initiation, stuff like tower sieges and Baron and all of that fun stuff. And we're going to see how initiation is just a really important part of a team, even if you don't have a Amumu or Galio or Malphite or any of those other Circle of Death type champions. So without further ado, let's go to that first replay. Now I'm going to take a little bit of a moment to look at these team compositions. You can see on the blue side, we have the incomparable Monte. That is me, of course. I'm paired with Miss Q, my duo Q buddy, and we've got a fairly interesting team composition. We've got a Garen, we've got a Nunu, we've got a Varus, and a Talon, and a Nami. And what you can kind of look at with this team is there's no real clear initiator. Nami's ultimate, it's neat and it can hit lots of people, but it's also really slow. It doesn't actually catch people very easily if they can see it coming, and boy can they see it coming if you're in a typical tower siege scenario. And then Varus has a good ultimate that can catch a single person off guard, but all of those tendrils that root people, they don't slow them first. And so if there's nothing else keeping them in place, people can really easily walk out of it, and so all you've caught is the one random person like Ezreal or Kayle or whoever else, and it's not really that good of an initiation tool. It can catch somebody, sure, but in terms of actually locking down a whole team, it doesn't happen. And when he uses it to catch somebody, he loses a very key defensive tool, which is important when the enemy team has assassin-y characters like Zed, or just strong bruisers who can jump to the back line like Elise. And so you're kind of left with, well, who the heck initiates on this team? And the answer is kind of, well, it's going to be some sort of a mix of Garen, Nunu, and Talon. They're the guys who are going to want to run in and do a whole lot of AoE damage together and make things happen. Talon might silence this Fiddlesticks or something, or jump on the Ezreal. That's kind of what you would expect from this team, but that's also very difficult. It's not very easy to tell when you're somebody like Garen or Nunu or Talon, when is that right time to go in and make things happen. Meanwhile, Purple Team has Fiddlesticks, and Fiddlesticks has one of the most obvious circles of death in the game. He stands still for a moment, there's a nice big booming sound to let everybody know, hey look, trouble incoming. And then he starts cackling with glee as he jumps in the middle of all of you and there are crows or balloons or whatever the heck, and bad things happen to the enemy team. So they have a very clear bit of initiation. Blue team does not, and we'll see how that works out. Now, as much as I know you'd like to see the laning phase, we're going to skip ahead and we're just going to actually look at some of these initiations and tower sieges and things like that so that we can get a good idea of how this works. We're focused on the initiations. We're not focused on how bad I am at the laning phase as an AD carry or anything like that. So we're actually, this is not quite far enough. I need to go all the way to the 32-minute mark. This is a long game, and because it's kind of a crazy game, not a whole lot of team fighting happens before this point. So here we are at the 32-minute mark, and purple team, as you can see, they're kind of setting up for a Baron fight. They're all hanging out here, Ezreal's on his way, and blue team is a little bit split. But purple team, they don't know there's a ward here, or if they do, they don't really care. They're actually going to start working on Baron. Kale's going to run a little bit of interference. Garen actually went back to base. He probably should have just hung around. And we'll slow things down a little bit. Now again, I did mention earlier that Nami ultimate is generally not a very good bit of initiation. But in this case, this is actually an exception. Because if you look at the Baron pit, you can see there's a very, very small entrance of escape, a very, very small confined space, and there's not a whole lot of maneuverability to run away from something as big and scary as a Nami ultimate. And so Nami, being wise to this fact, or at least knowing it intuitively, throws her ultimate out, and manages to hit Kale, manages to hit Zed and Fiddlesticks, and Ezreal ever so barely gets out of the way, but it also hits Elise. And this actually sets up nicely for Varus to follow up with his ultimate, which is now working on Ezreal. Fiddlesticks flashed out, but Ezreal is now rooted, and that's going to start spreading to Elise. Varus was able to get a bunch of damage on Zed before Zed could counter and attack him. He's able to flash away and avoid a bunch of damage, and that's helping the fight go blue team's way greatly. This initiation really helped. Talon is kind of pushed out of the fight by Fiddlesticks, but as we can see, Varus is coming close to death, but with a little bit of help from Nami, everything is working out very well, all because of good initiation. Ezreal's kind of low, but Nunu doesn't really have all that much damage. He's got a Rod of Ages, but that Spirit of the Ancient Golem's not really helping him tank all of Ezreal's AD damage. He doesn't have any armor worth mentioning, so he just kind of died. Elise has jumped onto Talon. Garen is heading over there. Varus is a little worried about coming back into the fight. Ezreal is kind of hanging out here, beating the crap out of Nami. Nami's in a little bit of danger, but she does get the stun off. The rest of the team has died. And all in all, a fairly decent fight. Nunu died. Ezreal escaped. Baron was taken by purple team because Nunu was too busy using his ultimate to actually take it. But it was generally a good fight. Generally. I just want to do a little bit of a side here. We've seen this before in previous Mondays with Monte. If you were paying attention to the sides of the screen, you will note that neither Nunu nor Fiddlesticks used Smite. If you're a Nunu and the Fiddlesticks is way out of the Baron pit, and you're right there, even if you're channeling your ultimate, you can just Smite. Like, it doesn't interrupt your ultimate. Or you can always stop channeling your ultimate and just consume and Smite. It's really easy. And I know Nunu is one of those champions who has one of those amazing abilities. It's like, you channel that ultimate, and then it goes boom, and everybody dies, and you're like, yes! It's the greatest feeling in the world. And it's fun to watch videos where like a Nunu just runs around, he builds AP, and he blows up really bad players. That's so fun. I actually have one favorited on my YouTube and everything. But in terms of actual good play, if you're at Baron, and you're channeling your ultimate, and Baron's about to die, you kind of need to stop and just eat Baron, if you're Nunu. Or if you're Cho'Gath, or whoever else. If you're a jungler with Smite, Baron's your responsibility. Fulfill your responsibility. That was Monty's tangent for the day. So anyway, we saw that fight went pretty well for blue team, because the Nami initiation into this small space, followed by Varus, was very effective. And we're going to move forward a little bit, and we're going to see things in a less optimal time, less optimal positioning. Now here we can see that purple team is actually sieging the middle tower. Nami was out of position, and so they were for a little bit going after her, but they gave up because the tower's more important than she is. So Nami's had to recall, and she's going to rush to the middle in order to help defend this turret. And one of the things about this lane is it's a lot wider and has a lot more space in which to avoid things. And so if Nami were to fire her ultimate straight down the middle here, pretty much everybody on purple team could avoid it. Now Nami is actually positioning herself very well here because if she fires it across the bow rather than straight down the lane, her ultimate is actually much more effective. However, because this is a tower siege scenario, Garen's really the one who needs to make things happen. And if you look at where he is right now, if he were to just have kept going to the right here, I mean, this is just the perfect moment. Fiddlesticks and Elise are out of position. He could just go right in there. Things could happen. Nami could fire her ultimate right across, force purple team to stick close to the turret or run into her ultimate. Varus could follow up. Talon could follow up. Nunu could follow up. Things could happen. But as we can see, Garen instead just kind of walks away. And that's not the best. Because what ends up happening is this cannon minion wave gets a lot of damage on the turret. Well, maybe the next wave will work out a little better. The turret has 314 health. Once a turret gets so low that the enemy team can just murder it and then murder you, they're generally not worth defending. The moment was lost. That very, very brief moment where Elise and Fiddlesticks were in this area, Garen hesitated, the moment was lost, and his chance to initiate is gone. This turret will fall, and blue team will not be able to defend it. It's unfortunate, but those moments sometimes happen, and they're very brief. And I don't blame this Garen for not initiating then. He had about a half second to figure out what was going on, and to make his decision, and then just to go in and go for it. And that's not a lot of time, and for a lot of people, they might not even realize that it happened until after the fact. Maybe right at this moment during the game, Garen was like, well, crap, I missed that moment. That's unfortunate. But when they come, and when they go, and only by not hesitating and just committing to a decision can you learn to recognize those moments a little better and not miss those opportunities. Thankfully, blue team doesn't lose a second turret despite being fairly well poked down because of these waves pushing top and bottom. Those were big threats to these inhibitor towers, and purple team did not want to lose 2 inhibitor towers for the price of 1, even though they have a much better poke team. All sorts of poke on this team, not too much poke on this team. Talon is being a boss and trying to kill this Ezreal. Unfortunately, there is a Kayle who's going to come in and ruin this Talon's day. Such is the life of an assassin against a Kayle. Now, here's a good moment to point out what's going on here. Ezreal is dead, Talon is dead, and Kayle is top. But there are 4 members of blue team mid. This is a really good time to just not initiate. There's only 2 people here, and there's a tower at about half health. You've got your AD carry present. Theirs is dead. Garen's really tanky. I mean, he's got all sorts of armor. He's got Randuin's and a chain vest. But rather than just tanking this turret and letting Varus knock it down, he's decided to initiate. Between 2 turrets, no less. And so as a result, Nunu messes up his ultimate. He gets murdered. Varus fails to kill Fiddlesticks due to Zanya's and everybody else running away. Nami dies. Garen gets away, and we can see this just really didn't work out. There were only 2 enemies here, and yeah, you could dive them, but the other enemies weren't that far away, and this was just a really good opportunity to not initiate and just take a turret. Very easy turret to take. We can see that even without actively focusing it, it took another little chunk of health off. The creep wave was also gone. It was cleared by Fiddlesticks and Elise, so leaving Varus or try to take it by himself would not have worked. Garen really needed to tank it, and tanking 2 turrets at once was not a very good idea. That's largely what killed Nunu. That's largely what killed Nami, and as a result, 3 people died. Nobody on the enemy team died, and blue team missed an opportunity to push this turret. Sometimes the right answer is not to initiate, and that's also very hard to judge. Now, thankfully, Garen committed very hard to his mistake, and hopefully he can learn from this in the future. He'll know, you know what, when there are 2 turrets here, and we don't have a creep wave, and my team is kind of not at the highest health or mana, it's not a good idea to just dive in to that turret. So once again, we're going to move forward. The progression of time is never ending, and we're going to see that purple is pushing around. They're all together. Zed is flanking. Blue team is kind of a little worried about a big push down the middle, but purple team instead has pinged Baron, and they're going to go for it. There are a lot of wards thanks to the prolific warding of Nami, very professional support warding. There's vision on Baron. There's no pink ward. Purple team does not know that this blue team ward is here, so they're starting Baron. But again, Kayle is running interference. And here's where something very important happens. Fiddlesticks decides to ultimate. Now, all purple team can see is this. They did see that Varus and Nami were here, but they didn't see where Garen was. But they also know Talon is up here. So Fiddlesticks is like, hey, the one guy who can very easily silence me during my ultimate is way far away. Garen is nowhere within walking distance. I can just go in and flash in and totally ruin Varus and Nami's day. Now, Varus did manage to retreat out of the way, but Nami is totally in the middle of all this and does not make it. She does not get to do anything. She is gone before she has a chance to fight. So now Nunu's taken a bunch of damage. Talon is nowhere to be found as of yet. He's on his way, actually. We can see him coming. But he was way up here fighting creeps when stuff was happening down here. Varus has used his ultimate. It is rooting people. However, Zed is now free to move. He is jumping on top of Varus. Nunu is inexplicably nowhere and has inexplicably not cast Blood Boil on Varus. That's not a very good thing. In fact, that was a running theme this game, the lack of Blood Boil being cast ever. I was almost uncertain that he'd even skilled it, but in fact he's maxed it after his snowball. He gets his ultimate off on people, but because everybody who can do damage except for Talon is already dead or dying, it's not much use for people focusing down one healthy target when they're not a really tanky character. Tends to not go well for the healthy target, especially when the enemy team, low as they are, have like half health or a little bit more or less. Garen is boldly trying to get this kill, but she flashes away, and we can see this fight ended very, very poorly for blue team. Why? Well, Talon was up here. Garen was kind of in an awkward spot. I think he was anticipating an initiation on the enemy in here again, but instead Fiddlesticks turned around because he knew Talon was way far away, and just jumped in here and totally messed everything up for blue team. And that's kind of why you do need to be careful in these tight spaces, and it's the kind of thing you actually want to look for when you have a huge AoE area affectability. You want to catch people when they're in tight quarters, and all of that fun stuff. It's really fun to catch 5 people in a Fiddlesticks ultimate, or Galio, or Amumu, or all of that. It's awesome. But we're going to move ahead a little bit more again to the final and most important fight of the game, as usual. So we're at the 44th minute. If you're looking at this, you can see that it's getting close to the end. Purple team is again pushing mid. And Varus was a little bit out of position. He might have been thinking about taking red buff up until the point where purple team was all revealed to be middle. That would be kind of dangerous. He takes the long way back to be safe, and we have another classic tower siege scenario. You've got Talon waiting in the wings. The blue team will tend to hang out on the sides where it's harder to get poked. They just want to clear these creep waves and look for a chance to initiate. Now, this was a cannon minion wave, which means the next wave is not a cannon minion wave. And those are the best waves to initiate because there are fewer creeps to tank the turret, and especially not the cannon minion creep, and so it's just a great opportunity if you can catch somebody out. Now, unfortunately for blue team, we can see that Talon has just randomly decided to leave. Even though this is the best time to initiate, he's actually going all the way up here to backdoor, which is kind of a bad idea, because if you're not already up here, generally the purple team will have worn the turret down by the time you even get up here, and things will go poorly. Now, Varus has used his ultimate to catch out this Fiddlesticks. If Talon were here, he would have died before the Kale ultimate saved him. Varus goes down to Zed because it's so darn hard to survive an assassination when you're not somebody like Ezreal or Tristana or Corki or somebody with an escape ability. Talon comes in very late to the fight, but again, a healthy person against a bunch of semi-healthy people doesn't work out very well. Wait a second. Ezreal died? How did Ezreal die? Talon comes in. He gets beat the crap out of by Zed. He uses all of his abilities. He dies. The damage goes down. There's a caster minion. There's the caster minion! This is the greatest moment of this caster minion's life. This is a hero caster minion. He deserves a medal for his bravery in killing the mighty Ezreal. Fighting onward, not afraid of this Zed. Not afraid at all. Unfortunately, this is going to be a posthumous medal for this caster minion. He has died in the line of duty, bravely doing what Talon could not, finishing the job. But for all of the bravery of that caster minion, we can see that blue team was aced under their own turret. Talon's decision to backdoor was not a good one. We've seen that before as well, if you can all recall earlier Mondays with Monte. And that's essentially the game. Zed'll push some turrets, but we're not going to dally about with that because there are no more team fights worth mentioning. So, we've seen a few initiations, and we've seen a little bit of a theme. There are those moments where you just, it's ever so brief, but you have to commit to a decision and just go for it. Garen missed one such moment, and maybe that would have worked out for blue, or maybe it didn't. But we don't know because he didn't do anything. Varus committed to trying to grab that fiddlesticks right there at the very end, but because he didn't notice that Talon had wandered off somewhere, it didn't really work out. He got murdered by Zed because Zed is just a crazy good assassin against a Varus who does not have much in the way of defensive items. And so the game was lost. But if you were watching, you could see, you know, those weren't very easy decisions to make. It wasn't very clear that it was a good idea for Garen to go in there. It wasn't very clear whether that was the right time for Nami to use her ultimate at that one Baron. These things are a little subtle and a little hard to figure out when you don't have this giant death circle. The giant death circle is easy, relatively speaking, because it's just a really obvious giveaway. It's like, oh, yes, the giant death circle. Everybody's caught in it. Let's kill them. When do you use the giant death circle? When you catch everybody with it. That's when you use the giant death circle. It's you know, the very simplest form of initiation, outside of maybe a blitz hook. But even a blitz hook, it's like, well, when do you want to hook? Well, you don't want to hook the singed. There's a little bit of a caveat. But with a giant death circle, it's just, hey, look, there's the enemy team. Let's get them. Very easy. But when you have only a single target ability or something like that, or maybe you don't even have a single target ability, you just have to run headlong into them, like Udyr or Garen or somebody along those lines, those kinds of decisions are a lot harder to make. So we're going to keep looking, and we're going to go look at another replay where we have some more of those kinds of decisions being made, and some of them will be good, and some of them will not be good at all. So let's look at this one. Now, if you're familiar with a recent initiative I started, you'll know that we were testing at one point Iceborne Gauntlet Kassadin, and this is one of those games. And in this game, I played Xin Zhao. And because I'm Xin Zhao, and I'm the tanky dude, and I'm generally in the forefront of things, a lot of the initiations that are going to happen are going to be because of me. I'm going to be bold, I'm going to be brave, and I'm going to dive on in. We do have a Leona on our team, and she does have her ultimate, which can be used as a big AoE death circle to an extent. It stuns the people in the middle, slows the ones on the outside. But most of the initiations are actually going to be me, because I'm a little bit more experienced than DJ Foreclosure. He's a little bit more concerned about stopping this Katarina on the enemy team from doing anything and protecting our Ezreal. And Aurelia's just more concerned with killing everything. So I'll be the one doing a lot of initiations. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And so again, we're not really concerned with the laning phase or the jungling and all of that. We're just concerned with team fights, so we're going to skip ahead to the 16th minute and look at one of the early fights that happens. So as we can see at this point, blue team is kind of sort of setting up for Dragon. They're chasing off this Ezreal and this Kassadin. Katarina is close by. Varus is coming up, spotted by purple team's wards. They're obviously going for Dragon. Aurelia and Elise are going to stay top, but the rest of the team's going to come down. And here we see a little bit of, this is kind of like initiation. Kassadin and Ezreal have gotten ahead of the rest of the team and tried to stop this dragon from happening. And it's a little understandable. This dragon is low, it's less than half health, and you want to stop it. But they knew Katarina was over here. There were wards that had spotted Janna at this point. And this is kind of a dangerous place to be. You really want to wait for the tankier people to arrive, even if dragon is getting low. Because this is a dangerous position to be in, as we can see, because they moved on ahead of the Xin Zhao and the Leona and came here early, they're now really caught in a bad place. They're basically surrounded. They can't really go back this way terribly safely because Katarina will catch up to them. This is also a little dangerous, although it's a little safer, because it'll be harder for Katarina and Janna to catch them, although they'll be running right into Skarner and Varus. This is a dangerous position. Now Sonov gets off the spiteful Q onto Skarner, getting him low and making him dangerous. And Xin Zhao comes in, uses his ultimate to knock Katarina away from the rest of the team, slows her down to try to keep her away, and tries to get Dragon, but because he was suppressed, he does not get it. Katarina uses a pro Zanya's in order to catch Ezreal off guard, and no ward goes in this bush, so death awaits everybody. This did not work out very well at all for the purple team. And a lot of it was because they didn't all arrive as a team. Kassadin and Ezreal got there first, got surrounded. Xin Zhao came in and tried to split the team up, but Katarina can jump around. That didn't work very well. He got grabbed. Dragon got taken by the blue team. Everybody died because of bushes and Katarina ultimates and stuff. Not the best fight, and if it were to happen again, the right thing to have been done would have been for Kassadin and Ezreal just to wait a little bit. Even though it might have meant that blue team would have gotten Dragon, running into a fight blind, or knowing that it could be dangerous if the enemy team is doing what they should do, is not the best idea. So we're going to move ahead again just a little bit to another situation of interest. And in this case, we have Elise is top. She's split pushing, while purple kind of just pushed this turret mid. They're excited. They got a turret. They're still even in this game. Fun times are going to ensue. And hey, look, Elise is really pushed out. Her team is not all together. They weren't at this turret. We can rush up there and make things happen. Now, it's not clear whether Skarner spotted this or the ward spotted this, but this ward definitely alerted Elise to what's going on. Now, if we look at this from Purple Team's perspective, they know that Blue Team is probably coming up, and here they are. They've spotted at least 3 members of Blue Team. The rest are probably coming as well. Soniv does get the Elise, and as we can see, Xin Zhao just jumps right on in here to buy some time. He gets on top of Katarina, he uses his ultimate. It unfortunately does not knock her away because of his ultimate mechanics, because he jumped her and his passive is on her. He dies also because he has not built anywhere near enough magic resistance. Skarner goes down. Kassadin cannot really stand around and fight because he has no health worth mentioning whatsoever. And so it was 2 kills for 1. Not too bad, not too bad. But because everybody just got hit by that Varus Q, this tower is going to go down. Not the best outcome. 2 kills for 1 and a tower. It could be better, but we really want to examine this decision by Xin Zhao right here. He jumped in to this enemy team that was coming in, and was that the best thing? Well, not really. What he wanted to do was probably just stay near Kassadin, wait for Katarina or Skarner or somebody to jump in, and then just use his ultimate without jumping on top of them to knock them all away and just buy time for his team to get back to this turret. If Xin Zhao had done that instead, I'm referring to myself in the third person because I'm being bad. I was hoping nobody would notice, but you guys are too smart for me. I'm bad. That is the lesson here. I should have let the team gather at the turret, and then we could have just defended the turret. We would have gotten a free kill, saved the turret, nothing bad would have happened. Instead, we lost a turret, and overall, this exchange does not go very well. I mean, the game's still even, but if it wasn't for crazy stuff like this pro Kassadin coming in here and picking up free kills because this enemy team is bad and hung around too long, things would have been much, much worse. So rather than dwell on the past and my failures, let's look to more of my failures. We are going to skip ahead to the 23rd minute now, where more stuff happens. So once again, if we look down here, blue team wants to set up a dragon fight. And Xin Zhao is all the way up top at this point, which is probably not where he wanted to be. However, blue team pulls back from dragon because they see that purple team is nearby. And once again, let's look at things from purple team's perspective. We know that they're probably in this bush because we actually saw them retreating this way, but they're not at dragon yet. So we're going to have a very quick decision to have to make. We see Varus, we see Katarina, we definitely know they're in this bush. Ezreal steps out a little bit, and this is what Xin Zhao sees. He has now to make a decision. I have now to make a decision, I should say. And what's my decision? Of course, I just jump right in, use my ultimate, and go balls to the wall. Janna uses her ultimate. Kassadin is grabbed by Skarner. The Katarina ultimate is interrupted by Leona. And things are dying left and right. We've lost Kassadin, we've lost Xin Zhao, but we've actually murdered 3 out of 5 of the enemy team. It's a little bit of an advantage. And hey, that worked out okay. It wasn't the best, and you would think normally a close space would work to the enemy's advantage, because they do have a Katarina up here, and they've got Janna and Varus and all that, and they love tight spaces. But instead, because Katarina's ult was interrupted by Leona, because Xin Zhao was able to tank, I was able to tank, fairly well, because his ultimate hit everybody, Dragon is given to purple team, they got a kill advantage, and that actually gave them an advantage in the game. A little bit of a tight space, but hey. There was just that ever so slight moment where all the enemy team was revealed, and there was no time to make a decision. There was just either go or don't. I decided to go. Things worked out. You really want to make these decisions very quickly and just go for it or run the hell away, because if you waffle about it, bad things happen. At least if you go right in, the bad things happen, you can say, well, that was my fault. I am bad at this game. And you can try to improve. So we're going to skip ahead again just a little bit, not much time at all, and more things will happen, of course. This is the 25th minute, and blue team is sort of gathering middle. We've got Elise coming up here. Xin Zhao is top, and let's actually look at things from their perspective. They just saw Xin Zhao up here. They're all middle, and Elise is coming up. But Elise has all of a sudden decided to go stop this push on the tower. They don't know where Xin Zhao is anymore because he certainly isn't there. There's 4 of them and 4 purple team members at the tower. Is this a good time to initiate or try to push the tower? No, it is not, and blue team makes the decision to not push the tower because it's dangerous, and in just a moment we see Xin Zhao is actually here. If they had pushed the tower, it would have been a 5v4 at a tower, which would have probably been disastrous for blue team. This is a normal, in fact. But in any case, what we can see is that sometimes you just don't want to initiate, and blue team picked a very good time to not initiate. However, they have also fanned out, and again, Xin Zhao decides to go right in, and that was actually a fairly good initiation. Elise is top. There's only 4 people here. It's a grand time to pick a tower. However, I'm a bad Xin Zhao. I panic and try to run away. I don't actually use my ultimate ever. I get grabbed. I get pulled in. This allows the enemy team to be all grouped up for the Janna ultimate. Katarina gets her ultimate off, and bad things happen because Elise is now here. Many people on our team have died, and we've only killed 1 person. In fact, if it was not for this pro play from Sana von Cassidy right here, it would have actually been fairly a loss for the team. Why? Not because I initiated right here, but because I panicked. I was like, oh goodness, I'm in tower range. I don't want to be in tower range. Let me get out of here. Oh, it's a Skarner. That didn't work out very well for me. But if I just stayed committed and just been like, I'm at the tower, I'm Xin Zhao, I just need to fight, this fight might not have been so close. My ultimate going off and knocking everybody around and making it so that Janna was not in a good position for her ultimate would have really helped. And yes, Sonov does do the mad jukes, gets away from 3 people trying to find him. He was incredible. He is a pro Cassidy. But we don't have time to dwell on that. We're talking about team fights and initiations and stuff. So we're going to skip ahead to the 28th minute, and as we can see, blue team is again pushing up the middle. They can see that Ezreal's down here. They in fact can see that there are only 2 people here and that Cassidy is dead. So what's the decision that they make? Well, Katarina just goes in and does a crap ton of damage, and everybody is murdered. So here's a good question. Why did this work when the one in the previous game didn't? What was different about this? Well, for one, there was actually a creep wave here that was tanking the tower all the way up until the initiation happened. Katarina just went in and did the mad damages, murdering the crap out of Xin Zhao and Leona. Skarner was able to follow up, as was everybody else on the team. They were focused, they were able to get around the tower, and there wasn't any shenanigans like Zanya's or 2 towers getting everybody because Xin Zhao and Leona were caught in this small space away from the tower, and bad things therefore happened to the purple team. However, blue team is again showing the propensity for sticking around way too long. GA is lost on Aurelia, but who the heck cares? She got a kill, and now she's back up again, and Varus is away from his protection. He dies, and now it is 5v2, and bad things happen to blue team. This is a good time to remember, sometimes you don't want to overstay your welcome. Sometimes. Well, rather than watch this, we're going to skip ahead to 30:45 and see the next big thing here. This is a Baron attempt by blue team, while purple team has inexplicably decided to do Dragon. This was actually my call, and then I'm like, alright, let's go see if they did Baron. In fact, they probably did Baron. We don't care. We're terrible people. And so let's look at things from purple's perspective. Purple team is coming in, and what do we know? Well, look, there's a Janna Tornado, there's Skarner, there's Varus, there's Elise. What should I do? Well, I'm Xin Zhao. Now, the rest of my team made the right decision here. They're like, the whole team's there, they've got Baron, let's get out of here. I've already taken a quarter of my health and damage, so what should I do? The correct answer is not jump into the enemy team and use your ultimate. Because, as we can see, I'm already dead. Sana's already dead, poor Kassadin. Ezreal's already at half health. Katarina is in the middle of everything, murdering things. There goes Aurelia, and now only Leona's alive. And for all of this effort, we have killed Katarina. This was what we would call a roaring failure. Now, the good news is, I fully committed to this, and because I fully committed to my mistake, I know that was really dumb. I should not have done that. I should not even have turned around. I should have been running here with everybody else because they were all here. So instead, we lose an inhibitor, and we might even lose some Nexus turrets because of my mistake. This is a little bit of a disaster. I'm going to try to delay things. I'm going to run right into the enemy team. I'm trying to knock up Skarner before he can get the turret. I don't succeed. I get a kill. That makes me happy, although I die for it. Sonov is harassing this Varus a little bit, but, you know, it wasn't enough to save the turret. However, Aurelia, Miscue is coming right in here. He's jumping in. He's doing the damages. And he gets a kill. Again, blue team overstaying their welcome. This is another sort of game-sensey thing. You want to really look at the timers on when people are going to come back and get out before they arrive. Otherwise, you lose people for no good reason and give the enemy team an advantage. Now, because we've lost our inhibitor and because there are creeps pushing, it's not like we can take any towers. But at the very least, this has given us a reprieve. They've lost Baron buffs, and we can probably defend for a long time yet. So rather than wait around, we're going to skip ahead again to the next moment of interest. And this is getting close to the 34th minute. We'll have full vision again. And we'll see, you know, people are just sort of collecting the jungle. Janna's warding. And unfortunately, she's right here. Now, I don't exactly know where the entire team is. I know Katarina's here. I don't know where anybody else is, but I know that they've been kind of here for a while, and I haven't seen anybody else in the area, so I know they're probably in their jungle farming it up. And so I make a decision. I just go right into Janna, and I attack her. Katarina's on top of me, but I successfully use my ult to knock her away. Skarner's nearby. I get Janna ulted over the wall, and so things are actually going pretty well for me. But because I'm Xin Zhao, I cannot stand to be away from the fight. I jump in, helping the rest of my team by tanking damages and getting brutally murdered, because that's what always happens to me. The GA saves Miscue again, Skarner goes down, and all of a sudden, it's 4v2, and Varus is not going to be very happy. I was a little concerned for Ezreal because he probably did not actually want to get that close. He could have died, but it worked out in the end. And this is going to be a fairly easy turret for purple team, despite the fact that there is a hero super minion back here holding the purple creep waves at bay. Hopefully I will spawn and save one of these turrets, but getting a tier 2 turret and possibly an inhibitor turret to lose one of these, that's actually a fair trade. But rather than watch everybody push turrets, let's move on to, again, another interesting point where an initiation happens. So in this moment, we can see that not a lot is happening from purple's perspective, but blue is actually stepping in to purple's jungle. So they're all around here. We know that. Kassadin does not. So they're just clearing a creep wave over here, me and Kassadin has decided to go into the jungle, and what does he find? He finds a Varus, he finds a Katarina, and Skarner nearly finds him. So if we're watching the map here, we can see that here's Skarner, Katarina, and Varus, and Skarner and Varus go this way. But Elise and Janna are over here. And so that's why, the moment that I saw them over here, I went in. Why? Because the enemy team is split, and outside of Kassadin, who's actually fairly mobile, my team is probably closer to this venue of combat than their team. And so I just go right in. I've caught this Janna out of position. Here's Katarina. I jump on her before using my ultimate, which was a horrible, horrible mistake because it meant that I did not knock Elise away. And so she gets to kill me. However, we get to kill her. Varus arrives late. As I said, my whole team is already here. And so it's a 5v2. Skarner goes down, and the only person left alive is Janna. So when the enemy team is horribly split, it's a really, really obvious time to initiate. It's like, hey, we're all alive, we're all close by, and there's only a couple of them. We can just murder them, because the rest of the enemy team is too far away. That's a really obvious time to initiate. It's a really obvious time to make things happen. And when everybody is dead is a good time to go crazy chasing people when you're a Kassadin. Although, lacking the blue buff, he doesn't have much mana to get things done. Although he does have plenty of mana, and this Janna is a little too brave for her own good. So we're going to move on to one final big team fight of interest around the 38th minute. This poor Janna is actually going to die thanks to the efforts of the team. You kind of want to be careful when you're a support and the entire enemy team is in your base. So at this moment, blue is going to Baron. Purple team is kind of grouped up, and because Baron has only just recently spawned, purple team is actually this time not going to go take Dragon because it's not there, even though it appears to be so on the minimap. They're going to go to this Baron. And this is an interesting position because this ward is actually in an awkward spot. There's some weird terrain glitch here, where as you can tell, they can't see anybody. They can only see Katarina, which is really weird. But Skarner sees the ward, he comes and fights it. We now know that the whole team is sequestered in this little spot. And me being Xin Zhao, being the crazy person I am, I go right in, I use my ultimate, I knock people around. I tried to smite, as you can see I used it, but it was too soon, so was Skarner in fact. So they get Baron, but we just kind of murdered most of their team. Elise and Janna are going to get away. They do have Baron, but you know what? It's our entire team left, and we've got creep waves coming in. That's basically game. So, as we can see, initiation is not so easy. I mess it up a lot. And I deliberately chose this particular game to show you how you can be messed up very badly. It wouldn't be a very interesting show if I only showed these great, bold initiations that were amazing and everything worked out and it was awesome. All we had instead, were all these failures, because failures are actually a lot easier to learn from. We can see that, hey, you know what? When you're initiating on people and they all have Baron buff and they're all in a tight space and they're a team that likes tight spaces, you don't want to fight there. You really want to just back off and be like, hey, okay, let's just fight at turrets. That'll be safer, that'll be better, that'll be awesome. Instead, I made a bad decision. We can see that, even slow-moving ultimates and things like Varus ultimate have their place in certain circumstances. And if you're going to make a team composition, you want to be aware of those circumstances so you can make the best use of those champions and the best use of those abilities. You don't, like I said, you don't really want to use a Nami ultimate to initiate by just firing it straight down the lane, because when you do that, the enemy team's just like, hey guys, there's a slow-moving wave coming at us. Think I should dodge? You think? Nah. Ash Arrow can be good initiation because it can come out of the fog, and it's fast. Ash Arrow is probably at least twice as fast as a Nami Wave. Nami Wave is like this really slow-moving thing. It's like, whoosh. It moves slightly faster than minions walk. It's slow. It's really cool looking, but it's slow. So if you're doing it in a lane situation, you either want to fire it across the lane so that they have to kind of either move forward or roll backwards, or you want to wait till somebody else, like a Galio or an Ashe, has already initiated on the enemy team, so they're slowed or otherwise have difficulty getting out. Maybe if your tank has gone in and is just being a big bully, that's when a Nami initiation is good. But really, if you want easy initiation, you can always just rely on those very clutch champions like Amumu. Amumu is really good because he's one of the only junglers who is very good and yet has an AoE initiation. Malphite is always banned, because his initiation is so nasty. I mean, he jumps into the enemy team, he gets all of them, and then he uses his slow, and so all of their AD and bruisers and stuff can't do damage, and then he slows somebody, and he's this big tanky rock. He's really good, but he's always banned. Galio is underappreciated, but he's also there. Morgana is okay, but if you're not if you don't have one of those champions or don't like playing them, you can initiate as people like Maokai, like Xin Zhao, like Blitzcrank can kind of initiate, although he's pulling people to him. Even Tarek and people like that can initiate. It's just very hard. It's a lot harder to see those moments, and that's what we've been focusing on. That's what we're looking at. And that is all the material I prepared, although I could try to pull up a certain Akali replay if I feel like it. If you want to see one weird moment at the time, when was that? 23 minutes into that replay. I will keep dithering in the meantime. But in any case, I'm not expecting anybody who's watching this show to just go out there and be like, now I know how to initiate. Because it's a very, very hard thing to do. This is not easy when you're not one of those champions. Yeah, Sanav, you know about as much about initiation as I know about playing Iceborne Gauntlet Kassadin, which is to say, not very much. No offense, sir. No offense. So, it's not easy. And what I've been emphasizing is that what you have to do is act with conviction. When you have that moment where the enemy team's all clumped up, and you're like, I want to go in. I'm a single target guy, but I'm Xin Zhao, and I want to go in, want to mess them up, use my ultimate, be awesome. Whether that's the right decision or not, make your decision, make it boldly, act with conviction, and just go or don't go. Make your choice. And by making that choice, you can learn whether it's right or wrong. So, I'm going to try to find this last Mondays with Monte replay. Where did it go? Come on. I am sorry. I did not expect to move through the material quite this fast today. But if you have any questions, you can start firing them away right now. Oh, bother, it's not there. I may not be able to find it in time, which is unfortunate. Normally I'm a little bit better prepared, but I did not go quite this quickly through everything the last time. Okay, Akali replays, Akali replays. Can people send me replays? People can send me all the replays they want. It would be actually phenomenal if people sent me replays. As much as I love casting myself all the time, I mean, I love myself a lot. But if, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be platinum or gold or even silver or even bronze. If you have a replay where you have some questions about your play, about how these things work, go ahead and send them to me, and if I think it's a good subject and I think I can develop a show on it, I will totally talk about it. I really want to know what you guys are struggling with, what you guys have problems with, what it is that you guys want to learn, because that's the whole point of this. As much as I like hearing myself talk, and I certainly like hearing myself talk a lot, as you can tell, I'd much rather talk about the things you guys care about, that you guys struggle with, that you guys really, really want to know about. So that's what's important to me. That's what I want to know. And so if you guys want to send me replays about that, just go right ahead. Now, if you want to save replays, there's a very useful program called LOL Replay or LOL Recorder that you can find on the internet. Just search for that, LOL Replay or LOL Recorder. It's a very quick, easy install. It doesn't take up much space, and it will automatically save replays for you. Now, replays do take up a little bit of space, so if you're one of those people who has a really crappy laptop with not much space on it, you will need to empty out that folder fairly often. Otherwise, you won't have anything, any space left. But it's a very, very useful tool. I mean, I've talked about it before because of how useful it is. It's just really good for being able to go over anything you've ever played and be like, I want to know how that enemy jungler got to where he was. I want to know how what did that enemy skill, that fizz that just beat the ever-loving crap out of me, How did the enemy team know we were there? Those sorts of things are just really good to go over, because when you have these replays, you can actually slow things down. You can look at what the enemy team could see. You can just analyze. And it's very, very useful to have that power. It's one of the best things in the world. Unfortunately, I seem to have misplaced that Akali replay, so I am completely out of material very early in the evening. That's unfortunate, but I hope that this was very insightful. I try my best. It's been a little bit of a while because we've had some fun over the holidays, but we're back now to the very standard, very analytical, very hopefully insightful commentary that I'm trying to bring to you every week. I will be doing the show, of course, every Monday at the same time, 8 p.m. Central, which is 9 p.m. Eastern, or 6 p.m. West Coast. The poor fellows in Europe, it's 3 a.m. or sometime around there. So again, if you have any questions, you can put them here or just post them in my thread on Team Liquid, send me private messages on the forums that you're aware of, or even send me an email at montgomerylol@gmail.com. I do check that fairly often, trying to see if anybody cares. I know you guys do, but I don't know if you're afraid. If you even want to just talk to me in-game, you can add me. I'm Montgomery with an E for no explicable reason. So just I am a resource that you can use to get better at this game. I want to help you. Just let me. That's all there is for the night. There are no more questions. There are some thanks in chat. I hope you all have had a wonderful holiday. I hope that your January is not too bleary. I hope your car hasn't broken down like mine has. And I hope that you are better at this game than Miscue. That is all for the night. I'll see you next week.